Wanted to put one little slide up here just so you can see an example of what one of the things I'm going to talk about. Beautiful HHI pie chart, okay? That's all there is to it. And that's really all there is to, is this thing working? Okay. To static competition analysis. Now, I didn't know much about that. I didn't know much about dynamic competition either before I went, about a year before I went to the FTC. I had tried a bunch of other cases that had nothing to do with antitrust, and then I ran into David Teese. We were doing a General Motors case together. And in order to prepare for his deposition, our preparation happened on 9/11. They actually pushed us out of our building, the Amoco building. We had no idea why. So we went to my house. I said, we got to get ready for the deposition. And that's what we did on 9/11. And then the next day we went to the Sears Tower, of all places, for the deposition. But in preparing for that, I had to learn, well, what the heck was David Teese up to? And what was his work? And he had a lot of work already on dynamic competition. Dynamic capabilities, I think, was one of the phrases that you used. And so I didn't know much about it. I rushed out and bought the Schumpeter's business cycles. Figured I need to read this and that'll tell me what I need to know when I get to the FTC. Not really, but I learned a lot. And when I read it, I thought, this stuff just sounds so obvious. Everybody knows businesses go rise and fall, and everybody knows that there's an incessant rise and decay of firms. And also everybody knows that there's more to economic analysis than just economics. As Schumpeter said, it involves all social life, science, and art included. That sounds like Nicholas Petit. But this is back in 1939. And if anybody had used static competition analysis back then, they would have been surprised what happened over the next 10 years. So anyway, I went to the FTC wanting to try cases, and I was pleasantly surprised there were plenty to do. And when I got there, I had a case thrust on me, Chicago Bridge, and I asked the staff, senior staff person, well, how do you do these cases? I mean, I just tried a General Motors vehicle case just a few months before. How do you do these cases? He said, it's real simple. You put together the HHI charts, like the one I just showed you, that was the actual one that we had. And then we have a day called Document Day, where we give the judge all the documents in the case. And then we hope that he reads them. I said, well, then what do you do? He said, no, that's pretty much it. And I said, well, how's that working for you? He said, well, you know, we've done this in the last 3 cases. We lost all of them, but we had some really bad judges. Well, how about the judge I'm going up in front of with this case in 6 weeks, Judge Chappell? And they said, well, we haven't had much luck with him either. He ruled against us in the last FTC case. And I said, well, we're just not going to do it that way. Because in my experience, judges don't like simple little charts like that. They want to know what's going to happen in the future, especially when every merger case is an injunction case. You're asking the judge to predict what's going to happen in the future if I don't stop this, or if I don't force a divestiture. And so we went in and tried the case. It took 2.5 months. We got past Document Day on day 1, and the judge said he wouldn't consider a single document unless a witness had put it on. So we had to find some witnesses, and we did eventually. But we ended up divesting quite a bit, or asking for divestiture of quite a bit. And when it all happened at the end, including one product that the target company had never even worked on, one that the target company hadn't built in, I think, 11 years. And still, both the ALJ and the commission and there, that was a Fifth Circuit, said, that's great, divest the whole thing. The company that took it over, Matrix, is now probably stronger than Chicago Bridge ever was at the time. Really very, very innovative. And they're now making that one product that we predicted they would make. It's a thermal vacuum chamber that tests satellites. In any case, that was the first case, just like that. And believe it or not, if you read the opinion, what you'll find is that by the time it got all the way up through the appeals and the commission, they decided that those charts that I showed you, that they weren't very reliable and that HHIs really didn't tell them anything. Now, you think when you read the merger guidelines from 2010 or even more recent ones, that courts would pay more attention to these HHIs. They're so important. They don't. They want to know the story. They want to know what's going to happen. What are these people going to do? And that's what happens. David knows this. He's testified quite a bit, and you have to tell a story. You have to explain to the judge as if the judge is a jury, because in an injunction case, that's all you get, that you're right. And the judge isn't going to believe you unless you put on witnesses and cross-examine witnesses and show that you are right. Now, the next one we did was Polypore, which was a battery separator case. And talk about dynamic competition. Again, we had products that the target had never made. We had a factory that at the time of the acquisition was a post-acquisition challenge. By the time of the acquisition, the factory had not even been built. And yet we wanted the judge and the commission and the appellate court to force them to divest everything, including the brand new factory that hadn't even been finished yet. And we did, and it was affirmed all the way up to the top. Again, a 2.5-month trial, we learned a lot, and we learned that you have to put on evidence of the story of what's going to happen in the future. So I have to say that when I hear all this stuff here today, this is where all the thinking happens, and then that thinking turns into articles, and those articles are challenged, as they were here today, and then they end up in opinions. And I'm the executive editor now of the Antitrust Law Journal. Don't try cases anymore, but I try to help authors get their stuff into print and help it become influential. Because we want them to be challenged, we want them to be relied upon by courts, and they are, surprisingly more than any other journal in the country. And in one count we had, it was more than the top 5 journals combined. So they do listen to us, and they listen to you. So it's very important for us that when you listen to all this stuff here today, know that somebody's going to read it and somebody's going to follow it. And you're going to be cited and quoted, and you will change the law. And I think in many ways I've changed the law more by doing this kind of work. I've been on the board since 1998, and more than trying 43 cases. It's the thinking that changes the law. And so one final thing is that you've heard all the criticism, you heard all the discussion. Please make sure if you have an idea, get it to the author. Or if you're afraid to send it to the author, send it to me and I'll send it to the author. But we want these articles to be challenged, want them to be better, want them to be influential, want people to cite them for decades to come. One final note, in following up on this, we're going to have our next big symposium next year on examining Microsoft at 25. Believe it or not, it's been that long, almost that long. It will be that long by the time we do the symposium. And how that case is or should affect platform and large tech cases that are already hitting the courts and the headlines as we've been hearing. But also it falls in neatly with this dynamic competition because it is what it's all about. All the stuff about innovation, I heard people talking about the iPhone and the iPad, and I was the lead counsel on the case against Intel, where I met Lee too. And boy, the whole point was to open the doors to innovation, to keep Intel from stopping other innovators from doing what they were doing. And the result of that was Apple ditched the Intel chip from the iPhone. That happened right before we brought the case. They brought the iPad with the same chip and decided not to use the Intel processor. But more importantly, if you remember the Mac Air wouldn't have existed if we didn't get that case to a final conclusion and get the settlement that we finally got. But it was all about future innovation. It wasn't because Intel was a monopoly. The commission said, that was good. We're not going to try to strip anything that was rightfully gained by Intel. That's not what this is about. It's not going after big companies. It's going after companies that do things that are not right. So with that, I'll close. And I was reading the paper, Jackson Hole newspaper the other day, and they had a great chart. And the chart was like this. And the chart said that when you get to the time where there are drinks being offered, people are more likely to be on time. So thank you very much.